how last week I told you that we would have the problems and the audio stuff fixed? We actually do this week. So the kind of bumper peeps intro thing with the Bible Is Metal is a little bit different. We have a fantastic conversation talking about Gideon. We realized yesterday that the Gideon story should have been broken up into two different blocks. It's just so big, but just another super cool Bible Is Metal episode, and everything's good. Like, everything's ready to rock and roll, just as we want it to. So let's just get into the metal. For this episode today, talking about Iron Maiden
and Black Sabbath.
And how these are two great metal bands that have had multiple lead singers.
Yeah.
And Graham did not know about the Ronnie James Dio era Black Sabbath song Time Machine, which was in the Wayne's World soundtrack.
Yeah, I didn't know any of that.
Wayne's World is what initially got me into heavy metal.
Really?
Yeah. And the Wayne's World soundtrack. So you're too young to remember how big of a deal movie soundtracks were.
Yeah, I'm obviously too young for that.
Yeah, but that's the thing is you didn't have the money to go buy a tape of I had, until I got into high school, I probably had 3 soundtracks for every actual album I had.
That's awesome.
Yeah, because that was the best. I mean, so if you're in the chat right now and you're of around my age and you have a favorite movie soundtrack, I want you to drop it into the comment bar right now.
Favorite movie soundtrack?
Yeah, like the Wayne's World soundtrack, the Dazed and Confused soundtrack. Yeah, the Last Action Hero with Arnold Schwarzenegger had AC/DC's Big Gun.
I couldn't even think of a favorite movie.
Yeah, so you'd have all these bands would come out and with their, I'm going to get the thing going over here. But yeah, they'd have all these songs that were only available on the movie soundtrack. It wasn't on an album.
Really?
Yeah, man. Yeah. It's just the way that things go.
Yeah,
so
I'm too young for that. I can't name a single soundtrack off the top of my head.
You can't name a single soundtrack off the top of your head?
I can think of video game soundtracks I think are good.
See, that's weird to me, video game soundtracks.
Yeah, that's kind of honestly, it might have replaced it because that's a big thing.
Is it video game soundtrack?
Yeah, there was a game called Doom.
Oh, I know.
I know about Doom. Yeah, they made the remaster of it.
Oh, okay.
And it came out, and a guy named Mick Gordon did it, and it's just this heavy metal instrumental soundtrack, and it's awesome. There's a whole following of Mick Gordon now because of the Doom soundtrack.
Okay.
And he came back for Doom Eternal for a little bit, which is the sequel that came out. The most Christian game of all time.
Doom. Well, I remember playing. I remember playing. The first time I ever saw Doom being played was on a laptop, and it was the first time I ever saw a laptop.
Yeah, it was like the id Software game.
And it was coming back from a church ski trip in Colorado. And one of the single guys who in his early 30s, like an engineer, was a chaperones, and he's sitting on the back of the seat on the bus by the bathroom and had his laptop, and I swear his laptop was this thick and had it open, was playing Doom with his headphones on. Yeah. We're all 15 of us are crowded around just watching. Can I play, man? No, you're not touching my laptop.
That is
and
so
doing
funny.
That
is awesome.
So Gideon.
Yes.
Gideon. Episode 4 of the Bible Is Metal?
I think it's episode 4. It should be.
Yeah.
This is chapter 4, I think.
Yeah, so we're getting there.
No, it's chapter 6.
Chapter 6.
Sorry, I don't know what I'm talking about.
Okay. So we've got some stuff to go into today. So the kind of way we normally do this is, you kind of give your synopsis of the story.
I will give the Sunday morning children's church synopsis.
The children's church verse synopsis, and we'll kind of talk about it. You ask me questions, I'll kind of talk through stuff.
Of course.
And then we do what we call the most metal moment of the week.
Of course.
And we each share what's our most just kind of metal thing. And so the Gideon story it's pretty metal, man.
It's a nice story. It's one of my personal favorites.
Yeah, so Gideon, Judges chapter 6, 7.
I think it's 2 chapters.
8.
Yeah.
Kind of goes into 9.
A little bit.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
So, big story.
It's long.
Big story this week. So,
I won't make it
Graham's
too long.
Sunday school version of Gideon's story.
So basically, again, and if you go through Judges, there's this saying that keeps repeating after the first chapter, and it is the Israelites did evil in the eyes of the Lord, and after that, it explains the situation they're in now. So, and for 7 years, he gave them into the hands of the Midianites. So, would you like to explain who the Midianites are?
Let's do your Sunday school. You want me to take... So the Midianites were the long ago cousins.
So again, they're fighting their Balkanville cousins.
Yeah, they're fighting their Balkanville cousins.
Yeah.
So the Midianites were the descendants of Abraham's wife, after Sarah.
Okay.
Or he had all the other wives after Sarah died. And it was Keturah, I think. And so what you end up getting is, like a lot of time, like we're both also reading a book right now, but not kind of at the same pace or the same time, about how not to read the Bible. Mm-hmm. And, one of the questions in there is like, how do you deal with like all the multiple wives and this kind of stuff. And one of the things the author, a guy named Dan Kimball, says is, these people had multiple wives and concubines, all that kind of stuff, but it never worked out well for them. It never worked out well. And so you've got this janky part of ancient culture that even though these were God's people doing this stuff, they still did just crappy things. And the Midianites are the descendants of one of these, of Abraham, just having way too many wives. Yeah. So, fighting their Bostonville cousins.
Yeah, exactly. So, they're cousins, the Midianites, distant cousins, though. They are noteworthy. They're more cruel than the other ones. At least it's noted so in here. So they basically they would invade their country. They'd camp on the land and ruin the crops all the way to Gaza, and they did not spare a living thing for Israel. So basically, they would just go in and they would just cause a mess for Israel. They destroy their crops. They'd leave them starving. It said somewhere there was a famine for years in here. I can't find where it is. But basically, the Israelites found sanctuary living in caves and mountains. I mean, trying to hide from them. I mean, this is how, like...
So I wonder if our previous conversation about Iron Maiden earlier...
Yeah.
So when you hear the song "Run to the Hills,"
oh my, yeah.
I wonder if there is a little bit of, conversation about the idea of running to the hills.
They ran to the hills. They ran to the mountains.
They had to.
They ran to the caves. I mean, they had a rough time. I mean, it was bad.
Yeah, I'm sitting here looking at my, if you've been following the Bible as metal, my nerdy Bible maps. I went and got
yes.
a Bible atlas. I'm pulling this out to just show. Okay, so here's the map for Gideon and his battle. In case I'm just going to bring this up and just look at. It's not going to focus because autofocus is turned off. But here's the thing: like North Louisiana, we don't understand mountains.
Yeah, no, that's not our forte.
We don't understand that. Like, you've got to, especially in Judges, the terrain is a character.
Yeah, it's not just one big desert.
No. So the Midianites just like come down into the valleys and just thrash everybody. Yep. And the Israelites run to the hills, hide out in the caves, find a stronghold, and just hole up there.
Pretty much. So, all of this is happening, and of course, the Israelites finally cry out to the Lord for help. And so the Lord does. The Lord sends a prophet and basically says, someone is on their way, someone among you will save you again, basically another judge. I mean, it's just the cycle keeps repeating. And so this brings us to Gideon. So one of the cool parts about just a recurring theme of the Bible is there's always just these average people who God lifts up to do these amazing things. And Gideon is obviously not an exception. He's, where is it? It says somewhere that he's just unordinary, right?
He's like, he just sounds like a wuss.
Yeah, he's just like this,
just kind of wimpy, and
yeah, I mean, he's like not the strongest of who is his? I'm really bad with names.
Well, all these names are also like
just so much.
Well, it calls it again. My translation says he's the Lord is with you, O mighty man of valor, and that kind of gets repeated. Like Gideon is not.
Yeah, it just
who's not a man of valor.
Gideon repeats. He shows that obviously. So basically, God sends an angel down, and he's sitting on a tree, and Gideon is trying to thresh wheat, to hide from the Midianites, because they just come and they just take everything, they plunder. So Gideon's sitting there threshing wheat, and he looks up, and the angel's there, and the angel says what Chad just said. So basically, Gideon is just, obviously in disbelief, because there's just something crazy happening. And basically, he said he just keeps needing reassurance to know that it's God.
Like over and
over again. Yeah. And so this starts here. So he said, "Pardon me, my Lord, but if the Lord is with us, why has all this happened to us? Where are all his wonders that our ancestors told us about?" And he said, "Did the Lord bring us up out of Egypt? But now the Lord has abandoned us and given us into the hand of Midian." The Lord turned to him and said, "Go in strength and go in strength you have, and save Israel out of Midian's hand. Am I not sending you? Gideon says, pardon, my Lord, but how can I save Israel? My clan is the weakest in Manasseh, and I am the least in my family. I mean, again, he just, he's kind of a wuss.
Yeah. But what I love is like this, so this refrain of I'm the least of my clan, and my clan is the least of my tribe, and my tribe is the least of all of Israel. You actually see this get echoed yet again a couple more books down the road with Saul.
Yes.
And you see David kind of pull this too. So like Gideon saying these things, and it's almost like this rhythm of, oh yeah. So I'm especially going to use you because of this fact. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So just kind of this weird pattern we find in Scripture.
Yeah,
Dawn, what's up? Dawn's watching. You don't
What's
know
up?
Dawn, do you?
I don't think I do.
Dawn's cool. Dawn's super cool. And your mom's here. So.
Hey, Mom. So basically, Gideon just keeps asking for reassurance, and God, of course, shows him, as God does in the Old Testament. And so Gideon basically is tasked to take down Baal's altar and
Asherah pole.
Asherah pole. So Chad has been, ever since I got here today, Chad has been withholding the information on what an Asherah pole is.
So last Sunday,
Okay.
we talked about with the Baal worship and Elijah,
Mm-hmm.
and I knew about Baal, but I never really did a bunch of research until I was on vacation a couple weeks back. Couldn't sleep one night. Got up at 4 o'clock in the morning. Like, we do some research on Baal worship.
As you do on vacation.
As you do on vacation when you can't sleep. Let me research Baal. And so for the first time ever, like I get all like, of course I go on vacation with like nerdy Bible books.
Uh-huh.
And I get my iPad out with my Bible software, and I start doing my digging around. Like, okay, let's figure out really what's this deal here. So here's the thing you've got going on. The people of God, Israel, were always sheep herders and donkey herders. Or livestock. They did that kind of a thing. And when they move into the Promised Land, all of these folks were farmers. Okay? And, there's like that story that we know now is not true whatsoever at all. Like when you're kids and they explain Thanksgiving to you, and like the pilgrims and like the Native Americans come and like teach them how to farm and all this kind of stuff, which we know is completely
Total
not
pipe
true.
dream, yeah.
Total pipe dream. Instead, like, well, hey, let's give you smallpox, and like 50% of your population will die in the next 100 years. Like that's what really happened. So anyway, it's like the people of God in the book before this in Joshua, they failed to drive out all of these people. Mm-hmm. And they get into Canaan, and they're having to learn how to farm for the first time. Because, the book of Deuteronomy says you're going to walk into this place, and there will be crops ready for you to harvest. Like this idea of abundance that's just remarkable. When they get there, because they don't drive everybody out, what they were told to do, now, like, they're trying to farm, and these folks are sitting there living with them. And they're like, oh, well, like for us, like we think about what is a religion, or like when we're going to lose our religion or lose our belief in God. To us, that's this philosophical or this intellectual pursuit that we have. Mm-hmm. Well, back then, religion being this intellectual thing is a fairly recent invention in modernity. For the history of humanity, religion has always been like this framework, this way you see the world work. Mm-hmm. And so all these people are like, oh, well, yeah, your crops are horrible because you're not worshiping Baal. You're worshiping Yahweh. Well, he's your like goat and bull and donkey god, but you're trying to grow wheat here. You need
bull and donkey god.
Well, that's the way people thought. Like you had a god for every single thing you need to be successful. So like what I said this past Sunday was, what it turned out was it's like I need a God for everyday life, and I need a God for crises. And that's what the people of God kind of ended up doing is, okay, I'm going to follow Baal to make sure my crops come in, but I'm also going to follow Yahweh because he's like the bigger God, but I've got a couple of these guys I've got to manage at the same time. The only problem was, this one I told you I'm kind of glad Noah's not here today.
Okay.
So Baal is a fertility god.
Oh, no.
Okay? So like you read in the Bible about the temple prostitutes and the male temple prostitutes, female temple prostitutes. Yep. When you worship Baal, you go to the temple to worship Baal, and if you need your crops to come in, you would pay a temple prostitute. Mm. And if you look at just anthropology and how people always worship their gods, it's always about you do what your God does. So like we follow the Lord, like the Genesis narrative, we're made in the image of God. God is creating, God is gracious, God is good. We're designed to follow him, be creating and gracious and good. Well, Baal's a God who and your corn would come in. So what would you? So an Asherah pole is like a giant male part, like in the middle of a field.
No way.
Yes way.
You're kidding.
No, I'm not lying.
There's no way.
That's what it is. That's what it is. So it's like, see if you think the Bible's boring, you're not reading it. So that's what. So Gideon like went out to his dad's farm. Yeah, I have. I know you're talking about. I know where you're going. Right. So like Gideon like went out. Adrian, sorry. But like Gideon would go out in the field. Like his dad had a. Like in the middle of the field, and he chopped it down.
He and his friends chopped it down.
Because Asherah was the female, like she was Baal's wife.
Really?
Yeah, okay. So it's Baal and Asherah.
Okay.
And so that's why it was both of these. And so you had a female goddess of fertility, and you had a male goddess of fertility. And so it puts the whole, like, that whole conversation just in a completely...
whole nother thing to dig into.
Because like, that's how they would worship. That sounds the weirdest thing, but that's why. Because to them it was all about, we've got to do this, we've got to appease this God for our crops to come in. And this is how this works for this God.
Yeah, that's...
So, yeah.
Anyways, Gideon takes 10 of his friends, I think they're his buddies. I just think they're like his teenage friends.
You got to be pretty good friends to go do this.
Yeah, and they just go and like burn down the...
Asherah pole.
The pole.
Asherah
for
pole.
lack of a better word.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they do that. Basically, everybody gets mad. And he basically says, I don't know. Hold on. I don't know. Where is it?
Well, it's like,
it's like, who did this, first of all?
Hey, Gideon's dad, look what your stupid son came and did.
God.
That's pretty much what they say.
Oh, man. And so, where am I at?
You're getting lost?
I'm getting lost. Hold on, I'm sorry.
I'm just laughing because Dawn's leaving a lot of really good emojis. Dawn's I was excited when you were on. I was hoping you'd stick around for this. So he destroys the altar of Baal and the Asherah pole. And then they had the whole fleece thing. So he's like, let me show.
Yeah. Sorry. So basically, Gideon needs another thing of reassurance, basically.
More confirmation.
And so, where is it? If you will save Israel by my hand as you have promised, look, I will place a wool fleece on the threshing floor. If there is dew only on the fleece and all the ground is dry, then I will know that you will save Israel by my hand, as you said. And that is what happened. I'm so sorry. Gideon rose early the next day, and he squeezed the fleece and wrung out the dew, a bowl full of water. So this is, again, another example of Gideon needing reassurance. So now that Gideon has been reassured, like 5 times now?
Yeah, like constantly.
Yeah, I mean, it's literally God talking to him. I don't know how much reassurance you would need after that. So it's time to defeat the Midianites. So Gideon gathers an army of men. I mean, at least 72,000 people. At least. Now, that's at least. There's at least, we're talking like probably 1,000 more people.
So like this was always, so you see him, so you see his name change to Jerubbaal. So like the overtaker of Baal kind of thing. Let's see, who all does he get? So 20, it doesn't say who all he got. So he sent messengers to Asher, Zebulun, and Naphtali. So 3 more tribes.
Yeah, it's a lot.
And Manasseh. So 4 tribes. 4 out of 12 tribes.
He's got like a massive Lord of the Rings army. Okay. Yeah. And so he takes them to the river to get a drink. He's on their way to defeat the Midianites. And God basically says, hey, this is way too many people. And so at first he invites Gideon to invite the people who are afraid to go home. And naturally, they're afraid because the Midianites are some bad dudes. Yeah. Bad dudes.
Yeah, that's like 2 towers, Helm's Deep.
Literally, yeah.
Yeah, the orcs are here.
So 72,000 people leave. I mean, obviously.
22.
22?
Yeah, 22,000.
I'm sorry. I can't read.
It's good.
22,000 people leave. All right. And so even after that, God says there's still way too many people here. So when they go and drink from the water, God basically says, okay, the men who lap the water like dogs, you'll let them go. The men who cup the water and drink it out of their hands, you'll keep. So after all this, Gideon watches about 300 people he keeps.
The sad thing is, can you imagine over 9,000 people drinking like a dog in the creek?
Yeah, that would be so fun. So now Gideon's got like 300 people to fight, like Helm's Deep, the orcs. I mean, literally, could you imagine being Gideon? So Gideon basically, he divides them into 3 companies. So that's 100.
Yeah, so 100, 100, 100.
Yeah, 100, 100, 100. And they all have trumpets, and they have these empty jars, they have torches inside, and Gideon says, Watch me, follow my lead. When I get to the edge of the camp, do exactly as I do. When I and all who are with me blow our trumpets, then from all around the camp blow yours and shout for the Lord and for Gideon. So this happens, and so you're ready for this like crazy battle. You remember like Jericho, where you get the small army, and God just shatters the walls and crazy stuff. So you're thinking, oh, it's only 300 people, and they're about to take out the Midianites. What's God going to do? Well, of course he's going to do something literally insane. So by the blow of the trumpets, God turns the Midianites in the camp against each other, and they kill themselves.
So they're running down the hill with their torch in a jar.
Yeah.
Blow their trumpets, they just show up all of a sudden. So 300 guys. And earlier it says that the Midians are countless, like an army of locusts.
Yeah, it's literally just Helm's Deep. Yeah. And God hits them against each other, and they wipe each other out. I mean, like it's crazy.
Yeah, just like I'm looking at my map.
Looking at his map.
I'm looking at my map. Trying to see where these folks come from, and it's just. I'm seeing what that hill is. They fight the battle near a town called Endor. So I want to get a little Star Wars thing going on there.
Yeah, literally.
But, it's just like, and I think that we really at that point, we find this defeat. There's other stuff going on. I think to kind of go through, the sad thing is, even after all of this crazy, and of course there's we're going to chase them down.
Yeah, he's chasing down the
miles
kings.
away.
Yeah.
We're going to trap you at the River Jordan, you're trying to ford. I mean, it's just this is I read this book one time about the history of the Comanche in Texas and New Mexico and all the Indian wars in the 19th century. And it reads like this, we crazy stuff. We got them by the Rio Grande River and killed 500 of them, and the blood, it's that kind of a thing. But what you see, this is the first big long story that we find of the judges. Because normally we see, this happened, everything was cool for 40 years. Instead we see, this go to Gideon's head. And Gideon takes all his booty, his plunder, melts it down, makes himself a golden ephod, which is a loincloth. It's his holy garment, which is kind of weird, right? You find these ephods all throughout the Old Testament. So, and he ends up making people worship him. And you see his own life go down. He ends up having a son named Abimelech who killed the rest of his brothers to take over control. And you find that Gideon's family rescued the people of God and then led them astray for 2 entire generations.
Again, it goes back to last episode where they made the observation that Deborah was pretty much one of the only judges that did the right thing in the end.
Yeah.
Give it to God, give everything to God. Gideon is the exact opposite, and he basically just lets it all go to his head, like Chad said.
Yeah.
And he leads the Israelites astray. And
there's no peace here.
There's no peace. He just basically repeats the cycle.
Yeah.
Goes through all that stuff, all the reassurance, all the epic Lord of the Rings battles, and it's just to go back to the status quo.
Yeah, so it's so Gideon led the people of Israel astray. They followed, they diverted their devotion to this false idol that Gideon makes. We need to still see this thing. Mm-hmm. So they didn't have that peace and stuff. And then the second that Gideon died, the people of God just went back to Baal and built back into Baal. So you see this huge rescue, but you don't find any redemption.
It's the saddest part of the story.
Yeah. Yeah. What worth is rescue if there's not any redemption?
Yep.
And
it's deep.
Yeah, I just came up with it on my own too. Right?
Yeah,
I didn't have that. I didn't have that written down in here. Probably need to write that down in my Bible.
You should write that down.
Yeah, write that down in my Bible. I think that this story, what's wild about it is that in my notes, I'm seeing so many other Old Testament allusions inside of this story, and in a lot of ways, that it's this picture of what the rest of the story of God's people is going to be like. I honestly think you can look at this Gideon story, and it's the rest of 1st and 2nd Samuel and 1st and 2nd Kings. It's you're going to find rescue. You're rarely going to find redemption.
Yeah.
And it's but there's a positive side to this story too, is you do see that God wants to use everyday normal people. You see the patience of God. Gideon, time and time again, hey, let me just.
Yeah, you're surprised he didn't just smite him there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you see this, it's there, You see Gideon's like tremendous faithfulness, like going and destroying his father's gods and altars. Because remember, this isn't just like, hey, Dad, I don't like your favorite thing, I'm going to toast it. This is, hey, Dad, I'm going to destroy the thing that you think is keeping us safe and fed. Like your whole like way of thing. It's like, yeah. And so you see, like Gideon, like keeps on there, almost there, almost there. The whole battle story and the chasing story is just crazy. I mean, imagine like you're at night, 300 people like screaming, running down this mountain. I've always tried to figure out how on earth they break the jar to keep the torch lit. Like since I was a little kid, I thought about that. But then like that's crazy. But God doesn't even use them. Oh, it's like no, the Midianites just can get so scared they're going to turn on themselves. And like we were talking earlier before in the stream, it's like that's wild right there. It's like, hey, you don't have faith. You don't have faith. You don't have faith. You don't have faith. And God is going to show more and more. This is not about you. Like you could have gone in there with 32,000 people, ripping and roaring, and duked it out and have tons of blood on the ground, or no, we're getting into 300 people, and you're just going to see that I don't even need you to do this.
Yep.
Like all we need is the faithfulness of Gideon to do this, and he could have sat back and like ate a snack and watched the whole thing happen too.
Definitely.
And so that's there, but I think there's also that warning. It's like, when we are seeing and experiencing faithfulness and all of this sort of thing, we have to hold it. We have to be responsible for it. Like I go back and I talk about those main teachings of Jesus so much. There's this idea of if you ever want to find yourself, you're going to have to lose yourself. Those who lose yourself, find yourself. If you're trying to find yourself, you're going to end up losing yourself. But then also that whole teaching of Jesus is kind of very much in a relationship with it. Is too much is given, much is expected. And it's this idea that our faithfulness all our faithfulness does is unlocks doors for us to continue in faithfulness. And you see Gideon push through and unlock doors and unlock doors and unlock doors, and then got to the point in time where he's like, nope, I'm not going to unlock that door.
Keep going.
And just
dooms it. I mean,
it does.
Yeah, I mean, it's keeps the cycle going.
The Bible is metal.
The Bible is metal.
So, Graham, what's your metal moment of the week?
Obviously, it's when they ran down and they were ready to just fight the orc army, and they're like, oh my, and they just turned against each other and killed themselves. That is obviously the most metal of the week part, in my opinion.
I think it's Gideon destroying his dad's altar in the Asherah pole. Because I'm just imagining like the level of defiance and that kind of thing, and like
that's like the punk moment.
It is exactly.
Yeah,
so it's like they're all wake up in the morning. I imagine there's Gideon like all sooty, from like chopping this down, and he goes and kills the bulls he's been plowing with, like sacrifices them, and sacrificing like when I clean a duck, I get blood on me. Like when I clean a pig. Or a deer, it's going to be bad. Imagine like sacrificing a bull like that.
It's a whole cow.
Just total carnage, and they're waking up like drinking their morning coffee and walking outside like,
and everything's just destroyed.
What on earth did you do last night? Like that. I think that moment, like that's my metal moment of the month. Gideon, just that defiance of. It's like he's like, now I'm a mighty man of valor.
He would have listened to the Dead Kennedys.
I think Gideon would have been into Danzig.
Yeah, definitely. That's a given. Yeah, he would have definitely been in the Misfits, Danzig.
Yeah, it's all there. That whole like goth punk metal thing.
Sure. Yeah, he would have spiky hair. I think.
So, what's our next story? Is we're gonna go through Abimelech. We've got. Is it the Jephthah? Yeah, it's the Jephthah.
Is it?
It's Jephthah. That's gonna be a fun one. After Jephthah, we get Samson.
Yeah. Oh.
So.
Yeah.
So I'm out. No. We'll do this next week.
I believe so.
Yeah, and then the week after that, I'm out. And then school starts back, so we'll have to kind of find a different schedule. But Bible's metal.
The Bible is metal.
If you think the Bible's boring, then you're not reading it.
Absolutely. And
Chad Grahm knows not with us this week. That has to be somewhere else. But if you like this, share it with your friends. We post the uploads on YouTube later on down the week, and you want to find that. So thanks for tuning in.